Here we are inside. I've been told it starts with World War I artillery here.
Hi everybody, Deborah Diablo here. Thank you for joining me again. I have something pretty special for you guys today, the Armour fans out there. I had a recent visit to the Australian Artillery and Armour Museum, which is located in Cairns, Queensland. If you ever get a chance to visit this incredibly beautiful corner of the world, I cannot recommend visiting this museum highly enough. There are over 200 vehicles and artefacts, and there are many people there who are very passionate and are more than happy to impart their awesome knowledge with you. I had a great day. I was there for hours and hours. I hope you enjoy what I have to show you. Like, subscribe and turn on your notifications and enjoy the museum.
Going down to more modern day stuff down the back there, and then British, Canadian, German, Russian Second World War tanks down there, and you can see right behind me here there's hardly anyone here. It's like it's my own museum, which is fantastic. There's a Russian T-54, British Chieftain. You know these things are big, but when you stand next to them, wow. And there's an M47 Patton medium tank. So I'm going to start here at the beginning and work my way down. I hope you enjoy this ride. There's a German 7.7 centimetre field gun from 1916. There's another mortar. There's a damaged mortar. Check out the damage on this. It has been restored from multiple guns, but they've left a lot of the original damage in situ. No, don't think that's firing straight at all. And there's a 1917 Schneider. I think this is their oldest gun in service from 1906 to 1945. It's a French 75mm field gun. This place is awesome. So that there is all World War I artillery pieces until we get down to this baby, which is a Russian S-75 Divina surface-to-air missile. First deployed in the late 50s. Did see action in different places, and it was also stationed around cities and vital facilities within Russia, and I think by the time it was taken out of service, there was something like 1,000 sites in Russia loaded up with these babies, ready at the drop of a hat. Anyway, there you go, quite formidable to see in person. I've gone a bit out of order here at the museum because how dare they, somebody else came along and is sort of going round with me, and I'm not happy with that. I want it to be my museum, but I'll just show you this while I'm here because it's one of my favourites. I've always loved these. There's a massive self-propelled gun. Reaching up to the roof of this big warehouse type facility. That's from 1976, that baby. But here, the flail tank. Okay, this one isn't one of Hobart's funnies. This one is from a later era. But I believe there's only 2 of these tanks left in the world, and this is the only one in functional condition. Oh, I love a flail. Here's some of the collection of the anti-aircraft guns. That one there is Russian from the 50s. And then we go down here and we've got loads and loads of troop carriers. There we've got a Humvee from the mid-90s, still in use by the US Army, and various other troop carrying type. There's a fighting troop carrier. Right. Fortunately, I'm not allowed to climb in any of these, which is a shame. The museum opens up here to look at this. So good. And here, I think that must be one of those ironic names. Tiny Teddy. No, it's so tiny. Support vehicle. Oh, this place is just so awesome. I'm so pleased I came here today. It's been on my bucket list. I think it's got the biggest collection of military vehicles and artillery in the southern hemisphere. So well worth a look if you're ever in town. It's almost worth coming just for this. There's another self-propelled gun. I'm standing beneath a massive barrel right here. Quite intimidating, but totally awesome. Hope you guys are loving it. I'm doing my best to show you what they've got here. This is just fantastic. And another self-propelled howitzer in the 50s and 60s, US. And we've got some Aussie tanks here in the middle. Dingo armoured car. There's another Australian carrier. Another little self-propelled gun over there, Australian. Don't think we produce anything here anymore. Oh no, we don't. These are all Australian actually. People overseas might not get a chance to see Australian vehicles quite so much. This is an armoured car from the Second World War. There's a 25-pounder. Another armoured troop carrier. These are all Australian made and have seen service either in the Second World War or in the Australian Army afterwards. Oh, that's cute. I like that. Right, just what you need. Pick up the kids from school, do some shopping. Get out of my way. Thank you very much at the shopping centre. Loving it. So here we are in another section. I'm basically walking down and back up the same columns. This is a Walker Bulldog light tank, which is from the New Zealand Army. And then over here we have a Leopard AS1 main battle tank, which I did a video on specifically, oh, I don't know, 6-7 months ago. These were employed by the Australian Army. They were developed in the late 50s, carrying on the German tradition of naming their tanks after big cats. We've got the Leopard. Pretty awesome bit of kit. It was only retired from the Australian Army just a couple of years ago, and a number of these tanks have been distributed to RSL clubs and various facilities around Australia as static displays. They're a pretty awesome bit of kit. I do love the Leopard. Fast. Not much armour, because after the Second World War they decided speed was probably the paramount concern. So this thing actually gets along quite fast, and it fires high velocity or armour piercing rounds through that big gun. Love it. And this is a Russian T-72 main battle tank from the 70s to present. And here is a British Centurion developed in 1945 and was retired only a couple of years ago in 2012. So a number of years the Centurion was the main battle tank of the British Army. She's a big girl too, look at her. Big girl. She's beautiful though. Huge big turret. An M47 Patton medium tank from the 50s. Big armour, big turret, and a British Chieftain main battle tank. She's a biggie too. Smoke rounds there. Awesome bit of kit. Brilliant. And here we go with all the reconnaissance and armoured cars that they have here at the museum. I've just been told by the gentleman who is working here today that 60% of these vehicles are drivable. They do an Armour Fest here in August, and I think I might have to come back for it because they get a lot of these babies out and you can get in them and go for rides. So, I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? And it's a private collection, I've also been told. So the gentleman, this is great, I love a Churchill. Churchill tank's one of my favourites. And this is one that was converted to have the large fascine bundles on top for filling in trenches, etc., etc. And that is what that bracket right there on top is for. Go up to a trench, drop the large bundle of sticks in, drive over it. And here, I think this might be one of my favourite things at the museum so far. The Ferret Scout car. I mean, that is just adorable. Look at it. So cool. And there's a World War II German troop carrier. They also told me that the gentleman who owns this collection bought his first Chieftain in 2011 and has amassed this entire collection since then. I don't know the gentleman's name, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tank Museum, for all that you do, because we get to share in your passion and see the fruits of your labour. There's also a big mechanical and restoration team attached to the museum here, mostly ex-service people, but they keep these babies going and restore them. Number of vehicles in restoration or to be restored shortly, and therefore more for us to enjoy. How good is that? Thank you, crazy tank freaks, for getting this together for us. I appreciate it anyway. And this is the second hall, which is the World War II section really. So they are all American World War II vehicles, and we'll get down there and have a look at them all shortly. Grant medium tanks, tank destroyers, awesome. Going up to USSR, World War II, Britain, World War II after that, German, World War II after that. And you probably can't see, but hanging on from the ceiling at the very end of this hall is a V2 flying rocket. I can't wait to get up and see that. And the doodlebugs, I think they used to call them in London, due to the noise that they made. And they were alright flying in the air apparently, so the people on the ground said. It's when the engines cut out and you heard silence that you would panic. But we'll get up there, all in good time, people. Be patient, we'll get there. I'm still here with the Germans, but I just thought it would be interesting to compare. That was an evolution from the M3 Stuart tank, which there just happens to be one right here next to it. So you can see the evolution in design. This was from like 1941 to 45, and it almost looks First World War. It looks archaic. And then this developed from that. Cast armour. It is not welded, it is cast. And another predecessor of it here was the M3 Grant, and you can see on this one, which was produced from 1941 to 42, that its main armament is on the side here, as opposed to a central traversing turret, which the next generation Sherman does indeed have. So, a little bit of background, a little bit of trivia. But I love all these freaky nerdy details. I hope you do too. And here is something I didn't expect to see. The Japanese Ha-Go light tank, never designed for tank-on-tank action, more for infantry support and reconnaissance. It's a super cute little thing. I know they produced an awful lot of them. This one was actually surrendered to Australian troops in Rabaul at the end of the war. And she's a little bit rusted away, but what a cool little thing. I know the Tank Museum in Bovington has a functional little Ha-Go. But again, is it wrong to call a tank cute? Because I just think that is so cute. Anyway, here we go, round to something completely different. And now for something completely different. US Pershing tank post Second World War. It's got a big ass gun on it. And I think that was the US main tank post-war. Again, fully moulded, no welds. And I think it was functional up into the 60s for the Americans. She's a big girl. And here we are back to our Shermans. I think it's time I went to have a look at something else. I've been hanging around with these Americans for far too long now. See you in a sec. So here we have the famous Russian T-34, the mass-produced tank. Was a giant slayer. Good enough, not awesome, not brilliantly produced, but produced in massive numbers, and numbers outweighed technology at the end of the day. Legendary little tank, that one. I shouldn't say little, she's quite big, but wow, legendary. T-34. And here we have tank destroyer. These are all Russian here. T-70 light tank. T-60 light tank. These are all Second World War. Been used during the Second World War. This one was a little earlier. This is a T-26. And was in production from 1931 to 1934. So a little bit more primitive. Two turrets up there. Not one big traversing turret. Oh, J. Stalin. There you go. Engine deck at the back.
The emergency warning system is being tested.
Oh no. Don't test me. Oh dear. It's about to go crazy. We'll pretend it's an air raid siren, hey? So there's a T-26 from 1933. So getting to be more that classic sort of shape. This single turret up the top there. And a Russian self-propelled gun. Another big ass self-propelled gun. ISU 152. Just see when that is produced. That was built from 1943 to 1959. Heavy assault gun. Occasionally used as a heavy tank destroyer, and she's got herself a little bit of damage. There we go. Now I'm not sure how well you guys can see this. It's behind a glass cabinet, but here is a shell cupboard, essentially, full of all shells from the First, Second War and beyond. There's a shrapnel one. I hate them. I hate them. Probably can't see it. Full of ball bearings. The damage that those things did to soldiers' faces, especially during the First World War, doesn't bear thinking about. And here's more big ass shells. Wow, so cool. It's amazing to see all the different ordnances, all the different sizes.
Russia. Holy shit.
Here we are, Russian artillery, howitzers, field guns. It just goes on. Oh my goodness. I'm like a kid in a candy shop. You guys need to come here. It's just too much awesome stuff to see. The guys here are super knowledgeable. They know everything about every vehicle that's here, the history of every vehicle that's here. And I've also been told that when they do a restoration, they try and make it as original as possible. So the Hargo that we looked at before, which was surrendered to Australian troops in Rabaul, had a certain camouflage on it at that time in that part of the world. And they know about that, and they will repaint it in those colours, which is kind of awesome for us detail freaks. Really cool. And here we've come to another one of my favourite tanks, one of the top 5 for me, the Churchill. In service from 1941, most of the way through the Second World War. And it was an awesome bit of kit. It's a British-made heavy infantry tank, heavy armour, and all-round tracks. It's a great tank. There's a Matilda. And a Valentine. All of these things in such good condition. And there's a self-propelled tank gun as well. Archer self-propelled anti-tank gun. In case you can't tell, we are now in the British section of the museum. British World War II. Doesn't get much better than that. Pretty exciting stuff, I know. Alright, here's what I've been most excited to see. Ja, das ist the Deutsche Panzer section. Fully tracked fighting vehicle, Pan's Kampfwagen, 1939 to 42, Panzer III. Back so we can see the Panzer III. There we are. 41 to 45 in service, and German Panzer IV, 39 to 44 in service. Das ist awesome. Deutsche Panzer. But wait, there's more. That there is a Leopard service vehicle. You might be able to see the big arm on the top, which swung out over the top like a crane for changing the power pack in the Leopard, which we saw just before. But over here, this is probably essentially what I'm here to see. There's Panzer IV, different variant. But here, baby, this is it. This is what I'm here to see. My favourite tank, #1 on my list, probably for sentimental reasons more than practical reasons, because I think they had their issues. We have the Panther. What an amazing bit of kit. In service from 1943 to 45, and we're by France after the war. Requisitioned German vehicles. Very complicated track and wheel setup, which made for a great ride for the soldiers inside. A nightmare to maintain and fix. And that was pretty well the hallmark of all German tanks in the Second World War, Tiger included. Magnificently engineered, over-engineered for their purpose. Hard to fix, expensive to make, and few of them in number, which is a little bit of a downfall because it's magnificent. Right there, Panzer, my favourite all-time tank. And it would seem ludicrous to say so, but I just walked straight past this. I was focused on that Panther and I didn't even see this Tiger replica. Gee, it is a beast. They say in the movie Fury, it's a fucking beast. Yes, it is. Look at that thing. Massive. They could take them down though. 5 Shermans would head out in a column, 5 to take on 1 Tiger, and get themselves in a good position at the rear of the tank, and they could take it down. Very thick armour on the front. In service from 1942 to 45. 54 tonnes. So she's no lightweight. No. She's used in North Africa, the Eastern Front, Europe, usually in independent heavy tank battalions. Classic Tiger. Everybody wants to see the Tiger. Everybody knows about the Tiger. In fact, if I go and stand next to it, you can see there's a picture of one there. Being overrun by French civilians. You can see my head barely comes up to above the track. So she's a big girl. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Tiger. Thank you, Mr. Armour. Here is another Tiger. This time there's a little stairway up next to it. You can get up next to it. Look at the top of the turret, which you don't often get to see. You can see how wide that turret is, how big that gun is. Huge big engine deck. Recovery ropes, etc., etc. Spare track there on the side. Oh god, it is a beast. Now here, this is really quite interesting. We all know that it's got quite thick armour, but here is a corresponding piece from that section at the back here. You can see how thick the armour plating was. So that's the rear armour plating. I'm guessing that's probably about 7 centimetres thick. The rear of it was apparently its weakest part. And here you can see a corresponding section here. And the side skirt there, back angle, which corresponds to the back of the tank there. You can see how thick that armour is there as well. So yeah, about 7 centimetres thick. I'm allowed to touch this, by the way. Not just helping myself to museum exhibits. I'm not allowed to touch that there. So here we go. I believe this Tiger, there's another one we looked at just a second ago, was made from composite spare parts found all over Europe. So it is original, they're all original parts, but they were not originally put together to make a Tiger. But here they are, all assembled like the big Lego kit for us to enjoy. It's easy to enjoy it here in the museum. Don't think I would have enjoyed it if I'd seen it rolling towards us. Across the fields of Normandy, for example. Awesome. Now another insanely impractical piece of German equipment, although they loved making insanely massive and impractical pieces of equipment, God love them, was Schwer, Gustav and Dora, the two massive railway guns, which were so large that they weren't used that often. I believe Dora may have been used at Anzio, and that's about it. But this is a shell case from Gustav, or from Dora rather. Now it's a bit hard to gauge the distance, but there's my hand in it, so from there to there I'm guessing is probably a metre across, a metre in diameter. And these big guns, there she is there, we used to be able to fire these shells as far away as England. And there is a model of Gustav and Dora. There's a little tank, I don't know if you can see, up the end there, and there, just for some perspective of how big this thing was. I think it used to take a crew of like 30 or something just to operate the thing. Gotta love Nazi megastructures. And there is the flying bomb replica that I saw from the other end of the hall. V2 flying bomb, which they used at the end of the war. I'm sure we've all seen Operation Crossbow, the movie, and they needed a great big ramp to launch off, which were all positioned in the north of France and directed towards England. So the engine used to splutter along for a period of time. I think it was all timed really, rather than anything. It takes X number of minutes to get to London, and that's when the engine cuts out. And London residents, I know, when they heard them, think they were worried, but it was more when the engines cut out that they would scramble because the thing's coming down very soon. And it's a real pity, actually, for the Germans, not pity for anybody else, excellent for everybody else. But these things weren't really developed until towards the end of the war. They really didn't have an opportunity to make too much inroads, and the Allies landed in France on 6th of June 1944, as we all know, and overran these sites, and so therefore no more B-2s launched. It's interesting to see one there, they're quite big. I keep coming around the corner and finding something else that I'm equally fascinated in, and I'm glad I ran into this because it is one of my favourite things, the cat and crad. It is a half-track gun tractor, essentially, a motorbike half-track. How good is that? And I will admit that I forgot that it was here after seeing all the other things and getting all carried away with myself. So I'm glad I've come around the corner and seen the cat and crad. Half-track motorbike, could there be anything better? I mean, really, fantastic. I love it.
Well, there you have it, the Australian Artillery and Armour Museum. What a fantastic day. Thank you so much to Jason Belgrave, who gave me so much of his time, and I can't believe the knowledge that he had. I learnt so much. I hope you enjoyed this tour around the museum, and I'll see you next time. Bye.